Now, much has been debated about that tragic night that Trayvon Martin was shot. Here is what we know based on the 911 call that came in that night from George Zimmerman himself.
Sanford Police Department.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
We got him on the way. Just let me know if this guy does anything else.
Okay. They always get away. He's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay. Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
All right, sir. What is your name?
George. He ran.
Now, minutes later, Trayvon Martin was dead, and a controversy was ignited. Here to give us his son's side of the story is George Zimmerman's father, Robert, and his attorneys, Craig Sooner and Hal Uhrig, is with us. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Zimmerman, I know just obviously you don't want to be on camera, and there is a reason for it. Can you tell our audience why?
Well, we received numerous death threats.
Okay, and one of the things that has come out of this case is there has been a bounty that has been put on your son's head. You know that famous Hollywood stars Spike Lee, Roseanne Barr have tweeted out, at least in the case of Spike Lee, what he thought was your son's address. What has this meant in that sense? How difficult has that been for your family, and do you think this has all been a rush to judgment by the media?
It's absolutely been a rush to judgment.
Yeah. Why don't you walk us through, because you obviously have spoken to your son. Tell us his side of this story on this night. Tell us what happened.
Well, it's customary on Sunday night for George to go and do grocery shopping. He had been texting his sister and told her that he was going to go and do grocery shopping. He got in his vehicle to leave the community. He saw somebody that did not live in the community walking behind some townhomes. That small gated community has had a lot of problems with burglaries and people coming into that community to commit crimes. So he thought that it was suspicious.
Okay, so and I understand it was raining that night, and when you say that he saw Trayvon Martin walking behind townhomes, are you saying that he was up close to where the homes were? Is that why he was suspicious?
I don't know exactly where Trayvon Martin was walking. I'm not real sure of that.
There have been implications that have been made. One was that on the 911 tape that we just played, that he might have used a racial slur. That has been countered by other people. Two stories that I recently read, and one is that, is it true that your son would tutor African-American and minority children on the weekend? And is it also true that there was a case involving the Sanford police in which a son of a police officer hit an African-American homeless man, and that he spoke out against the policeman? Is that true too, sir?
That's true concerning the assault on the homeless man. He went around to churches and put flyers on people's cars, and he just felt sorry for this homeless man not having anyone to support him.
Right.
And
has he ever used any racial slur that you know of, sir?
None whatsoever.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you, and when the dispatcher said to him on that 911 tape, "We don't need you to do that," meaning because he said, "Yes, I'm following Trayvon Martin." Did he follow him? Did you ask him if he followed him at that point? And what happened from that point forward? Tell us the rest of the story.
From where George's vehicle was, there's a sidewalk that goes to the next street over.
Okay.
Off of that sidewalk, there's another sidewalk that goes between two rows of townhomes. It's my understanding that Trayvon went between the two rows of townhomes, and George was walking down the main sidewalk to see if he could see where Trayvon was going. He continued walking down that sidewalk to the next street. He wanted an address. All he could see was the back of the townhomes, and he could not see an address. So he asked the dispatcher to have the responding unit call him, and he could tell him the address. So he walked down to the end of the street, I'm sorry, to the end of the sidewalk, to the next street to get an address. He did not know at that time where Trayvon Martin had gone. As he was walking back to his vehicle, there was a sidewalk that goes to his left, and Trayvon came from that area where the sidewalks meet. He asked my son if he had a problem, and George said, "No, I don't have a problem." Trayvon said, "Well, you do now." He punched him in the face, broke his nose, knocked him to the sidewalk, and got on him and started beating him.
Well, so he was walking back to the car, is what you're saying. Trayvon confronted him. He reached for his cell phone, and Trayvon, this is confirmed, his nose was broken. And is it true that he had lacerations and injuries to the back of his head, sir?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay, and his nose was broken that night, but he denied medical care, although he was treated at the scene. Is that true, too?
I believe the medics cleaned him up at the scene. Following that, the police took him to the police station for several hours.
All right, walk us through. First of all, did he stop when the dispatcher said stop? And how did we get to the point where the shot was fired? Explain that part of this, because that's obviously the key moment in this thing.
When the dispatcher said, "We no longer need you to do that," and George acknowledged, okay, he no longer knew where Trayvon was. So he continued walking down the sidewalk directly in front of him to the next street to get an address. He got an address. He was walking back to his vehicle. Trayvon came from his left side, asked him, did he have a problem? George said no. At that point, Trayvon said, "Well, you do now." He punched him in the nose, again, knocked him to the concrete, and started beating him. George was there yelling for help for at least 40 seconds. It's clearly him on the tape. There's absolutely no doubt about who it is. A neighbor came, saw what was happening, saw George being beaten, heard George yelling for help, and the neighbor said he was calling 911. And that's what he went inside and did.
And how do you know, sir, that was your son on the 911 tape? I know there's been conflicting reports about this.
Well, when I first heard, I heard the Martin family say that was their son, and I thought, well, they're a grieving family, and maybe the tapes were not too good. But then when I heard the actual recording, me, my family, friends, everybody knows absolutely that's George.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back much more with Robert Zimmerman. And welcome back to Hannity as we continue with George Zimmerman's father, Robert. His attorneys, Craig Sooner and Hal Uhrig, is with us. Mr. Zimmerman, let me go back. And obviously, you're telling the story of your son, and none of us were there. And I know people trying to put this together. But I would argue there's been a rush to judgment. And by that, the president has weighed into this. We know that members of Congress have used terms like Trayvon was hunted like a rabid dog. Racial profiling was involved in this case. That was Bobby Rush, Reverend Jesse Jackson. He killed an unarmed 17-year-old kid, then, quote, walks away. you know, this is racial profiling and lies. You know, so many things have been said, that he was executed for WWBGC, walking while black in a gated community. What do you say to the president? What do you say to these members of Congress? What do you say to all these activists and people that have, quote, rushed to judgment here?
I just believe it's very sad that so many people are not telling the truth on purpose for their own agenda. And I really thought that we had gotten past a lot of racial problems.
You said about the president, you didn't see so much hate, you didn't expect or foresaw so much hate coming from the president or members of Congress. What did you mean by that, sir?
Well, immediately the Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP, I don't know how many agencies and organizations were calling for the arrest of George. And
well, they're still calling for it.
95% of the facts, yes, 95% of the facts that have been verified by Sanford, the city of Sanford, they said that George's story is consistent with every eyewitness account and every piece of evidence they have.
All right, let me go to the attorneys here, Craig, Sooner, and Hal Uhrig. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us. Appreciate you being here tonight. Let me talk about the eyewitness in this case, because wasn't that eyewitness available from that first night? And didn't he say that he saw Trayvon beating on George Zimmerman?
I'll let Mr. Sonner start with that one.
Well, as far as those were the reports that came out, and you know, a lot of information on this case was released from the beginning, and no one is going back and saying, well, what do we know? Because I believe Trayvon Martin's father, I saw an interview that was dated some time back, and he relayed what the police had told him. Then we've heard several accounts by Mr. Zimmerman and George's brother, and those all line up the same way. There are police reports. There's evidence that has been released that shows a story of George Zimmerman acting in self-defense, and how these other conclusions are drawn is really a mystery, as how the media could put that kind of spin on a story. And first and foremost is there's really none of this evidence that's been released so far would even be admissible in court yet. There is evidence in this case that will be admissible in court, and we need to wait till that comes out instead of rushing to judgment.
Well, one of the things is, you know, I think the most important thing is that this eyewitness does exist, and it seems to have been ignored. And then you have the doctoring of tapes by NBC News, and then you have ABC News making a conclusion about the videotape. Let me ask you this question. I have been told, and there's a lot of rumors, that there is more evidence that is out there that has not come out. Can you tell me, either one of you attorneys confirm that for us?
Well, the police have done an extensive investigation. I know that, and there's more evidence that will come out, and I'm not at liberty to discuss that because
how big an impact would that evidence have on the case then?
I believe there's enough physical evidence to draw the conclusion that everything that's been said that we've learned so far, that George Zimmerman was acting in self-defense that night, it's all going to match up, and it's all going to be confirmed by physical evidence.
What do you want to?
Sean, if this case is
go ahead.
Well, if this case comes down to a case of the law and the facts, then George Zimmerman is going to be justified in what he did. Unfortunately, it's been turned into something that it never was intended to be. On the morning of February 26th, we had a peaceful town where people went to church and sat together in multiracial congregations. They stood in line at the grocery store, and we didn't have a seething town of civil unrest because of race relations. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton brought that to town. They turned this into a racial event when it never, ever was one. Once all the evidence is out and you understand how the law works and what the facts are, this is a pretty clear case. And
I go back, Mr. Zimmerman does not have any history of racism that we know of. He doesn't, he did tutor minority children. He did, in fact, stick up for a minority that was hit outside that bar incident.
All of that is true, and when you have the conclusions that are drawn in these rallies, or the loudest voice is supposedly the most intelligent voice, they're coming to conclusions that are absolutely unsupported by history or fact.
All right, last question. What about the bounty that has been put on Mr. Zimmerman by the new Black Panther Party? I haven't seen any evidence that person has been arrested. Are you demanding the arrest of the new Black Panther Party member that put that bounty out there?
Well, you know, I think none of us were appointed to be roving attorney generals, so that's not my job to do that. I would hope that, you know, some justice will be brought, but I'm not going to stand here and say, oh, you should go arrest them. I think that the law enforcement community is competent to know their job and know what they need to do. So I think that, you know, they're breaking the law, and eventually I think law enforcement will get them for doing the wrong that they're doing.
Gentlemen, thank you for being with us, and I urge everybody in the media and those that have not heard all the facts yet, we want to get to the truth, and in time I hope we will. Mr. Zimmerman, thank you so much for telling your story tonight. We really appreciate you being with us and your attorneys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And